Welcome back to another build video for the launch of Diablo 4. Today, I'll be showing you my Blood Cyclone Whirlwind build. In this video, I will be including the skills as well as the legendary aspects you'll need to make the build work. Now, before we get started, I noticed a lot of creators are making builds for the Barbarian who don't understand how the class works and fumbles very hard, in particular on the aspects, so I would like you guys to pay close attention to my build as I explain to you why you should use them. Also, a lot of you who watch my videos are not subscribed, and to be quite frank, you are subscribed to a lot of those creators who give you bad builds. Consider subscribing to my channel as I will give very well researched and tested builds and will continue to make build videos and give good information for Diablo 4 for the launch and beyond, so you'll actually get high quality videos and not just videos for views. With that out of the way, let's begin. Alright, we are here in the build video, and like I've said in previous videos, things are subject to change when uniques or in other aspects come into play that we haven't seen. But in the event that you're using this build, this will easily get you to the end game no problem and be pretty powerful. And in the event there's something like super powerful comes along, I will adjust the build accordingly, so don't worry. Alright, to the skill points though, like previous builds, I'm going to be using Lunging Strike. Lunging Strike is a great basic skill that gives you good mobility, but most importantly, it gives you bleeding whenever you're hitting with it. So has a 20% bleeding effect over 5 seconds. It's really good. Great synergy. It's one of the only other bleeding abilities you have as a basic attack. Obviously, the star of this build is the Whirlwind. We're going to kit it with Whirlwind, Enhanced Whirlwind, and then we're going to go with Furious Whirlwind, because when you're using this with a slashing weapon, which you're going to use swords, 20% of the base damage it will be as bleeding over 5 seconds. So these are already 2 ways you're going to proc bleed, and that's going to be the main focus of the build, which is bleeding. Pressure point is another great one. Your core skills have a 30% chance to make enemies vulnerable for 2 seconds. You're using Whirlwind. It's a core skill and it does multiple procs. You don't kill everything in one hit like in my previous other builds. So you know, it's a spin to win build. Usually the damage is lower. So you'll be able to proc vulnerability relatively reliably with pressure point. So that's why we're getting it, because vulnerability gives increased damage. I love Endless Fury. I think it's a great talent. You don't have to get it early. Like, it's good, but I would probably get it a little bit later. Whirlwind is very costly in like how much it costs, but with Enhanced Whirlwind, this will help with some of the Fury costs. Over here, again, we're going to get some of the talents you've seen a lot of, and that is Rally Cry, with Enhanced Rally Cry for the Unstoppable to help you with CCs, and Rally Cry, Tactical Rally Cry to give you more resource generation, because you need a lot of resource to sustain this skill. We want Challenging Shout, Enhanced Challenging Shout, and then we want Tactical Challenging Shout. Once again, these are going to be core to a lot of Barbarian builds. I think they're really good. And then again, whenever you get hit, you get more Fury. We want more Fury to sustain it. Just like in previous builds, again, War Cry, Enhanced War Cry for the Berserking, and then Power War Cry for just killing. I went with Leap here. Oops, don't want that. I went with Leap here for the extra Fury, but alternately you can use Rupture if you want to, because it still help you with proccing bleeds. I would go with Enhanced Rupture here, obviously, and then I would get Fighting Rupture, because this will give you some type of HP sustain. You can use Warrior Rupture for attack speed, but it just kind of depends on what you want to do. But these are optional as well. These are great options as well. I like Leap because of the synergy with Aggressive Resistance, Battle Fervor, and Prolific Fury, because it gives you more generation and more berserking time. But if you want Fury, if you want to proc the bleeds a little bit easier and give you some heal sustain, Rupture works just as well. I almost forgot to mention you want Booming Voice. Next, we want Pit Fighter. Again, this one is super core and synergistic to the build. Damage reduction is great and damage is good, but most importantly, we want to get No Mercy. Until we get some of the aspects though, I would maybe hold off. I mean, you actually get slow pretty easy here, which we're going to talk about in a second. But No Mercy is, I would wait until I get this skill first before I get No Mercy, right? But we'll get No Mercy because if you slow or stun an enemy, you have a 9% increased crit chance. That's pretty insane. Hamstring, your bleeding affects slow enemies. You only want 1 point. This is very important to only get 1 point. We're not getting it to slow enemies. We're getting it for the slow so that we can proc the damage, right? The modifier that comes with it, not for the actual slow. And then cut to the bone, your bleeding effects deal 18% increased damage to vulnerable enemies. Your doing bleeds, and then pressure point is going to give you vulnerable, so that's just easy damage for something you're already going to get anyway. Over here, I get Tempered Fury, 1 point in it. You don't have to max it out, but you want Invigorating Fury because you're going to be spending 100 Fury quite easily, and then it'll heal you for 9% of your life, right? Makes sense. Over here, I don't know why I have this. We don't use this. Heavy-handed, we want to use heavy-handed. While using a two-handed weapon, you have a 15% increased crit strike damage. This is really nice. And you're using two-handed weapons on everything, so, and you crit really high because of your aspects as well as just having high crit. For our big one, we want Gushing Wounds. When causing an enemy to bleed, you have a chance equal to your critical strike chance to increase the bleed amount by 100% of your critical strike damage bonus. This synergizes really well with heavy-handed, and since you're going to be critting, it's going to be quite easy. Overpowering a bleeding enemy creates explosion that inflicts bleeding in an AoE. I mean, this is fine, whatever. But you really want it for the Gushing Wounds to just really get your bleeds up. So that's going to be pretty much it for the skills. Alright, now we're over at the aspects, and again, I will tell you which ones are absolutely mandatory and which ones are not, and then yeah, tell you which ones you should pick up. So starting off, aspect of anemia. This one has a chance to, whenever something's are bleeding, you have a chance to stun them for 2 seconds. This is super important because you have this one, No Mercy, crit strikes against enemies who are stunned or slow. You're gonna have slow from just bleeding, but you know, you want more reliable ways of stunning, right? Plus there's other synergies that we're gonna go into in a second. Aspect of the Protector is amazing because I think, you know, just having a barrier for your life is amazing. It's a defensive skill that's going to be useful, and then we have another synergy with that as well. Skullbreaker aspect, stunning a bleeding enemy deals 20 to 40% of their total bleeding amount to them as physical damage. You're going to be stunning pretty reliably with anemia, and they're always going to be bleeding because all your skills bleed, so this is a no-brainer synergy. Iron Blood aspect, gain 2 to 4% damage reduction for each nearby bleeding enemy up to 20% maximum. This one's good. Another option that you can look at is Numbing Wrath. I honestly would prefer Numbing Wrath because you're going to be using some other synergies that are useful. I just put it for the sake of just the build video because I want to make it a little bit different. But I think Numbing Wrath is better, but this works really well too. And I think this one's much easier to get than Numbing Wrath, but at least that's been in my experience. But this one's good too, like they're interchangeable. This is like kind of the interchangeable one. Wind Striker aspect, this one's great because you're going to crit a lot and it'll give you move speed. One thing I want to point out for a lot of players is everyone always says to get the one that makes you pull in opponents. That one is garbage. That one does no damage. You can get damage utility out of your aspects. I would never use an offensive aspect slot for a pull. You're fast, you have leap, you have Warcry. Whirlwind moves when you spin, so there's no reason why you need something to pull it in because you can just move to it and kill it in seconds. So losing a damage for that spin thing is a bait, if you ask me. So if anyone puts that in their build, they don't know what they're talking about. Okay, Edge Master aspect. This one's good. You can alternately use Limitless Rage. Aspect of Limitless Rage is another alternate, but I'm just gonna put Edge Master here. This one works just as well. We want Accelerating aspect. Crit strikes with core skills increase your attack speed. More attack speed means you deal more damage faster, and then you're going to be critting with your Whirlwind, so it's going to be super easy. We want Conceited aspect. This one deals damage based on if you have a barrier. I like Conceited aspect here, but you can use aspect of Limitless Rage here as well. I just like the synergy with the barrier because I know I will always get the barrier. And honestly, I'm a little confused on how that works, how Limitless Rage works with a channeled skill, as I haven't really tested it. But they're interchangeable. This is by far the most mandatory and cannot not be in the build. And this is pretty much the only one, realistically. Whirlwind crit strike chance is increased by up to 10% for each second it is channeled, up to 20 to 40%. This is massive on a two-hander. You're just gonna crit like a madman. And so you must have this one. It's just amazing. I love the Bold Chieftain aspect of Echoing Fury synergy. It's just too good. You're using 3 war cries. There's no reason not to use it. And so make sure you always have Bold Chieftain aspect and Echoing Fury. I think they're a great synergy. For aspect of retribution is going to be our last one, and that is distance enemy has a 15% chance to be stunned by you. That's kind of whatever, but you deal 30 to 50% increased damage to stun enemies. This one is amazing because you will be stunning enemies fairly reliably with Anemia and Skullbreaker aspects. So I think it's really great synergy, and not having this and it's pretty defensive too because you have a chance to stun distance enemy 15%, so that's really good. So this has a really good balance of high damage and a good balance of stun. Alright, and that is it for the video, guys. That's pretty much all you really need. Again, some of the things you should look forward to whenever you're gearing yourself out, at least on your gear. Damage to close enemies, damage to vulnerable enemies, physical damage over time, just pretty much any like bleed over time based stuff, and then skill stuff. So that's generally all you really need, and you should be pretty good to go. With that said, guys, don't forget to like as well as subscribe to the channel. Down in the comments, let me know what build you'd like to see next. And yeah, I'll see you in the next video very, very soon. Later.